Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of this series on Axis and Allies 1914 Global Edition. Now I'm sure some of you are aware the Axis and Allies games have always been about World War II, and most of the time they are a whole world game, global games. Even some of the recent games, Europe and Pacific 1940, they're designed to be combined into the global 1940 game. So when they released 1914, I believe they were thinking that World War I was mostly a war fought in Europe, and it's true, the war was decided in Europe and around Europe. So they wanted to make the map mostly focused on Europe, and that's great, that makes sense. I really like it because it's a lot more detailed map of Europe than we've ever gotten. The Europe 1940 map, the second most detailed map, I believe France is just 3 territories, but in this map it is, as you can see, it is, I believe, 7 territories. If you look at Italy, I believe it's just 2 on the global map. Here it is 1, 2, 3, 5. So yeah, a lot more detailed, and that makes sense. I mean, I really enjoy that. It makes sense for World War I, it makes sense for this game, and it was a great decision. But there's just one problem with that, and it's the fact that World War I was a global war fought all around the world. So if we really want the full experience of it in this game, how are we going to be able to incorporate it? Well, we're going to have a global map. So this project was first inspired by a channel by the name of NGM Entertainment, who decided to use the global 40 maps and the 1914 pieces and make his own custom setup and make his own custom global version of 1914. And it was interesting. The only problem was that, as I said earlier, it just didn't really make sense for the Europe side because it just wasn't detailed enough. You know, I think Austria was like 2 territories. It was odd. So I thought I can do better. So my first idea was to put the 1914 board on top of the global map so that you still get the detail of Europe, but with like the rest of the world too. So I thought maybe I'd superimpose it or stitch it together somehow digitally, but no, I decided I'm gonna have to do better than that. So now you've been waiting for long enough. So here it is, the Axis and Allies 1914 Global Edition map. Yes. Just let you take it in. Now, I decided to make this map, and frame it around the 1914 map so that it'd be like kind of like an extension of the map, an optional thing you can add on. I think it was difficult to work around the existing map, but it proved to be the best option, especially for those who already own the game and just want to upgrade their experience or make like an optional variant that they can play sometimes. So you still have the original 1914 Europe map, and then you can add on global. So keeping in mind with designing this game, I had to make it pretty tall, pretty wide, as you can see. Especially if you see with Russia and Canada, they're really, really tall. Well, that's because I had to work around this map that stretches, vertically a long distance, all the way from South Africa to Norway. So as you can see, over here in Canada, where the border starts, I had to go to the top to where Norway was. I mean, there's no other way around it. So yeah. It's not perfect in that regard, but in every other sense, I think it's great. Now, when it comes to designing the C-zones and territories and the IPC values, I had to balance quite a few things. The aesthetics of the game, the historical accuracy, the playability and simplicity, game balance for both sides, and giving players possibilities and options for their game. So if we're just gonna start, we're gonna go ahead and start around Gonna go around the map real quick. Now, if you'll notice, I decided to divide the map unique to other Axis and Allies games. I divide it along the international date line instead of through the middle of North America, like other versions do, right here, international date line. Other versions usually divide it around here. Now I did that because World War I wasn't really a game or a war where the United States would be divided between fighting the Japanese in the Pacific and the Germans in Europe, so it made more sense to divide it along this line, and it just looks better that way. So if you can see over here in the date line, actually, I included the sea zones, these little boxes that show which sea zones they connect to on the other side of the board. So 51 connects to 50, 50 to 52. So let's start over here. Let's start over here in this corner, where we have Sea Zone 6, the White Sea, and I included the Franz Josef Land, an Austrian colony. It's actually just an Arctic island that Austria claimed off the coast of Russia. So yeah, I just included it just for fun. It's kind of an unofficial colony. Their only unofficial colony. And over here we have, Greenland, Iceland, Danish territories. Canada and Alaska divide into a few territories. United States and North America. Now, remember what I was saying about the design decisions? Well, here are some controversial things I had to do. United States is already one territory on the Europe map, 20 IPCs. That's already a lot of money, so I didn't want to give them too much extra money, so I only gave them 4 more territories, and I made this 20 basically the industrial heartland of America at the time. The East Coast, the Great Lakes, and the Midwest. So yeah, that's all. That makes sense if all of that is worth 20. That makes more sense than just the East Coast. Now here we have in Central America and the Caribbean. Yes, Mexico is a minor aligned power to Germany. It makes sense in 1914. Tensions were pretty high between the United States and Mexico. Much more than in 1917 when the Zimmermann telegram came out. So it makes more sense for 1914. Plus I figured if Germans are actually landing troops in Mexico, they'd be more willing to enter the war. And plus it gives the players the option, more strategies. Gotta have some playability and some balance in the game. Give the players the options of the Mexican invasion. Central America and the Caribbean, let's see. Puerto Rico, that's spelled right. That's how it was spelled in 1914. Santo Domingo originally was Haiti and Dominican Republic, but that was too big and complicated, so I just smushed into one territory, an American one, because they were considered American protectorates at the time, unofficially, and the United States would occupy both of them in 1915 and 1916. So just made American just because. Cuba's minor aligned to USA. Another controversial decision was Central America. I did this because same reasons, they were protectorates. United States would occupy some of them, but also if I included Honduras, Nicaragua, and El Salvador, 3 separate territories, all with roundels and names and IPCs this big, like Guatemala and Costa Rica, it would have been really big and awkward and hard to fit. So it made more sense to just smush them all into Central America and make an American territory worth 1 IPC. And Panama, American territory with the canal. South America, we got Brazil, minor U.S. aligned. European colonies, South American nations, divided by categories. 3s are for the major, or the bigger ones, Brazil, Argentina, Chile. The medium ones, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, are 2, and then the smaller ones, Ecuador, Bolivia, Paraguay, are 1. Oh, and Uruguay is 2, it's a medium. Lots of European or British and French island territories. Got Hawaii up here. That's it for the Americas. So let's look over here in Indian Ocean. We got some more islands. We got India. Threw in Portuguese Goa and French India. Neutral nation of Siam, even though they joined the war later. I would think they'd be definitely considered neutral in 1914. Same situation with Greece, you know. It's really hard to, I don't know who they'd be minor aligned to anyway. French Indochina, Singapore / Malaysia, you know. Dutch East Indies, Australia, worth 4 IPCs, just like all the other Dominion territories, like India and Canada. New Zealand, so we got the Pacific territories, the German Pacific territories. Big deal for this game. Gave them quite a few IPCs over here because I had to try to balance the game out a little bit, but not too much. I could have made all these islands worth 1, but didn't. Philippines. So yeah, those are the German Pacific territories. Then over here we have China. That was originally just 1 territory because all the other neutral nations in the map, like Spain and Norway, they're all just 1 territory, but it didn't look good. It didn't make sense for someone to take just 2 turns to go from Vladivostok, China, and then India. Just didn't make sense that way. So I divided into several territories. Yep, there's a Chinese roundel at the time. Then I threw in some of the European concessions right here. German Tingzhou. And the international city of Shanghai with its own flag. Japanese. And then over here we have Japan. A new power on the side of the Allies. Now when choosing a color for Japan, I considered what primary colors have not been used. So that left me with red, purple, and yellow. Did not like purple, so that was out the bat. Red could have worked because they were the rising sun, but I did not go with red and decided to go with yellow because it looked better. It's more different than red. Red would have been too similar to Russia. So I chose yellow because people are used to Classic Edition Axis and Allies. Japan was yellow in that game, so there's some familiarity with that. Also, in the early 20th century, Japanese uniforms had like yellow bands on their hats. So I figured, hey, that's good enough. And I think that looks really good. Yellow as a color for Japan. So yeah, that's Japan coming in with 4 territories on the home islands and some colonies, 10 IPCs total. So not too strong. Didn't want to overpower the Allies too much. Then over here we have Russia, territories all around here, Siberia. Not too many IPCs here. Again, don't want to give the Allies too much of an advantage. And yeah, that is it. And guess we'll talk a little bit about how the map actually works. It is actually just, I printed it on some matte paper. Or this is glossy over here. You have matte. Now you notice that these are kind of cut into lines. Well, I have it that way, taped together. That way I can just fold up the whole map and fold it and it'll all fit in the box. You could print it out in a single sheet if you wanted, but I like it that way. And if you notice, it is just printed like this. So when you lift up this map, here's the sheet of paper. So you just kind of lay it underneath. Then I left this area so that you can help you line up your game board. Right, it's like so. And yeah, and that is Global 1914 edition. So thank you so much. My next video, I will be going over the setup, and then I will be doing the rules, and then giving to you some tips on printing them, and I will be uploading all those files in later videos. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.